Like Richard Kidd, I can usually talk about habitat all day long. But I get very nervous when I talk about habitat to this particular group of people because many of you have been involved with habitat in Western Washington County much longer than I have. I feel a little bit like the grasshopper talking to the master. So I decided that I would orient my presentation today around impact, so really focusing on impact. One of the things when you're looking at nonprofit work especially is how do you measure impact? And I have two pictures on the screen here. The first one is a lifeguard at the beach, if you can see that on the left side of the screen. Okay, now this person is at the height of their training, their physical fitness, their readiness, and their career. This person, the lifeguard, probably only gets in the water maybe once a week, maybe once a month. But when they do, they have a huge impact on the outcome for the person that they're assisting, right? They are working at a heroic level. They are saving someone's life. It's immediate, it's measurable, it's discernible. That is one type of impact. Okay, this person over here is a swim instructor at the pool, right? They probably spend 3 or 4 hours a day in the water every day. They're working with a group of younger children, teaching them water safety, how to be in the water, how to swim, how to know when to get in the water if someone else is in trouble, and when to throw them a ring instead, right? This is another type of impact. You could argue that this person is saving all these lives, right? But we don't perceive this as being the type of heroic service that we see this being. So there are differences. They are both very impactful. They are having major impacts on the persons that they are serving, but in different ways. And similarly, our work at Habitat can be everything from heroic to everyday, mundane, but it still has impact in different ways. One of the first ways that we like to look at impact is just how many households are we serving. And I take particular delight in showing our production graph. And what you can see here is that from 2015 to 2018, we were on a steady growth trajectory, right? The growth from 2018 to 2013 almost like makes what happened before 2013 look like a flat line. It was not at all. We were heroically building homes and putting families into houses, right? But in about 2015 is when we started the repair program in Forest Grove. And so like the swim instructor who's in the water with students every day, we were able to start impacting more families more often in more ways. And then you see in 2018, we took a big jump to 2019. Then our first year of COVID, our production dropped, but it was still better. It was still our second best year ever compared to the years that came before. In 2021, gosh, I can't talk, our production jumped again, and 2022 is probably going to be up here. It's going to make the production before this look like a flat line. So all that's just by way of saying that we have experienced tremendous growth, and we are able to reach a much larger number of households every year on a regular basis. The program that most people most frequently associate with Habitat for Humanity is our new home construction. In fact, raise your hands. I think most of you, that's probably the one thing that you think of most, right? When you think of Habitat for Humanity, the wall raising, the community coming together, the donated materials, the volunteer labor, people coming together as a community to build a house. And that is that heroic level of impact, right? It takes a lot of resources to get a low or very low income family into a house that's affordable to them. Since we began in 1993, we have built 15 new homes from scratch. We've completed one rehab, which is what you might think of as a flip. It's a complete remodel from the foundation up of an existing structure to get a family into a house. And we've done 3, what we call in habitat land, recycles. And that's where we take a second habitat family and we put them into the same house that the prior habitat family is departing from. And we call that a recycle. We've done 3 of those. So we have helped 19 families with new construction. The home repair program, which as I mentioned began in about 2015, has grown steadily. To date, we have served 117 households and it now accounts for 74% of our work. We mostly do small to medium-sized repairs. So they're everything from yard cleanups, a wheelchair ramp, which is actually often a medium-sized job. They can be quite elaborate in terms of permitting, design. You have to be very scientific about the grade of the ramp and whether the surface is slippery or not, and handrails. There's quite a lot goes into building a wheelchair ramp. We paint a lot of houses. We also do quite a lot of interior repair. So especially in the last 2 years where we've been more limited in many ways, we've done a lot of electrical repairs and plumbing repairs, especially leaking sinks, leaking toilets, replacing dry rot in kitchens and bathrooms. We offer a variety of what we refer to as soft services. The first program is mentoring and teaching financial literacy. Everyone who gets a home through our new home construction project also participates in our partnership program, and they spend 12 to 18 months learning how to manage their money, to understand the home buying process, and helping to build their own and their neighbors' homes. So they have a very good understanding of how their house is put together and what they're going to need to do to maintain it. I get particular delight out of this story. This lady here was an accountant. She was an older person when she came into our home buying program. As a matter of fact, she retired professionally about 3 months after she bought her Habitat for Humanity house. I think she weighs maybe 95 if she's soaking wet and wearing a coat, right? She's just a little slip of a thing, but here she is out here using power tools. She worked every day. She would get off work early and come down and work on helping to build her own and her neighbors' homes. And that's the kind of thing that the partnership program does. We also provide a lot of job training, particularly geared to disabled workers, and that is mostly through our Restore program, although we are always looking for opportunities to do that through our construction and repair programs as well. Each year we conduct a women's tool clinic as part of our Women's Build project. It's a lot of fun, especially for people who have never had a chance to use power tools. It's like learning to ride a bicycle, right? It's a new skill and it changes your life. So it's one of the most popular programs that we offer. Through these programs, we're serving about 300 people each year. Habitat for Humanity also participates in advocacy. So here at West Tuality, we help with somewhere between 2 and 10 initiatives each year. They might be local initiatives, they might be statewide or regional initiatives, and we help promote things that reduce the hurdles for people having equitable access to home ownership and for people being able to remain in their homes and age safely in place, right? Those are 2 very important parts of our mission. We also participate in relief drives. You may have seen some of the relief drives that we did for people during the wildfires recently. We're currently conducting a campaign for Ukrainian relief. So Habitat for Humanity International has teams on the ground right now in Hungary, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and Ukraine. And they're doing things like putting heat into areas where the refugees are congregating because it's very cold there. They're converting empty schools and factories into shelters and all kinds of other activities. You can read more about that on our website and in our social media. Habitat for Humanity here in Forest Grove, West Tuality Habitat, also provides affordable mortgages. So we carry mortgages ourselves, sometimes in first mortgage, sometimes as a second position mortgage, and then we also help people have access to mortgages that are available in the marketplace. And some of these are special mortgages that are designed specifically for low income, very low income, and first-time home buyers. And I personally take a lot of training and certification, as well as a number of members of my staff do that as well, so that we are legally qualified to assist people with mortgages. Altogether, just in 2021, we served about 478 persons through our soft services. We also operate the Habitat for Humanity Restore. I'm kind of curious, can I just see a show of hands? How many of you have ever been in the Restore? Wow, oh my gosh, that's incredible. Almost 100% of this room, so thank you for that. One of the ways that we often talk about impact is what's referred to as the triple bottom line: people, profits, and planet. And the Restore is a perfect example of how we're able to do that. We frequently say that it's good for you, good for the community, good for the planet. We provide jobs. We participate with other community agencies. We support the paper with our advertising. We enter a float in the parade. We sponsor collection barrels for other groups and activities. And then 90% of all merchandise that comes into the Restore is cleaned, repaired, or somehow upcycled prior to resale. We keep more than 1 million pounds of goods from the waste stream each year, and the Restore is an important depot for the Oregon e-cycles, which is electronics recycling, and Metro Paint recycling programs. It's also a great place to get some incredible treasures.
I'm sorry, are questions at the end or?
We'll do questions at the end. Yeah. Okay. Because we are an affiliate of Habitat for Humanity International, we also participate in the work that is done by International through an exchange of resources. Habitat International does a lot of work to help educate lawmakers, the public, and other people about the impact of decent, affordable housing. There are many, many studies to support all of this. I'm not going to go into any of the numbers with you today, but there are significant impacts on health outcomes. There are significant impacts on the safety and the ability of people to age in place when they can be a homeowner. There are educational impacts, especially on younger persons, but also for people who are bound towards college, are much more likely to go to college if their parents are homeowners. There are big impacts in terms of childhood development, economic opportunity, and resiliency, which is the ability of a family to withstand financial setbacks. These are all associated with home ownership, and numerous studies sponsored by the National Association of Realtors, the Housing and Urban Development HUD of the federal government, Habitat for Humanity, and many other agencies as well. Habitat also sponsors its own research studies, and over the last couple of years in particular has done a lot of work around who has access to home ownership, the correlation between home ownership and wealth building, and racial inequities. And here I like to point out that Habitat for Humanity International was established in 1976, particularly to close the home ownership opportunity gap. That's what we were born to do. That was the nexus of the birth of the entire organization. Habitat for Humanity International also does advocacy work and has been one of the major players internationally in helping to establish women's property rights, the ability for women to own land, especially 3 recent successes are Bolivia, Cambodia, and Nepal, as well as a number of African countries. Habitat for Humanity International is also one of the largest international aid agencies, and some people might not be aware of that. They do a lot of work around disaster readiness and response, and as I mentioned before, they're on the ground already in Ukraine. They were some of the first agencies on the ground after the tsunamis and earthquakes and wildfires. Because of our exchange of resources and our relationship with Habitat for Humanity International, West Tuality Habitat for Humanity has built 26 homes internationally, even though we have not yet actually sent a team to do the work ourselves. Diversity. Over the last couple of years, particularly more and more focus has come around the topic of diversity, so I want to take an opportunity to talk about what we're doing. Recall that we were born to address the homeownership opportunity gap. But that doesn't mean that we haven't had an opportunity to really reflect on ourselves and say, you know, how well are we expressing that here in Western Washington County, and are there things that we can do to improve and to be more authentic in our delivery of services? And so we've implemented a number of improvements over the last couple of years. One is that our website is now offered in both English and Spanish. It's toggleable, which means you can click on any page in the top right-hand corner and with a single click convert the entire website from English to Spanish and back to English. Love technology. It was a big win for us. We have bilingual staff and multicultural staff, and then our numbers in terms of who we're serving also, I think, tend to speak for themselves. 8.2% of the households that we serve are veterans. Almost 41% are persons of color, households of color, 61% elderly, and 49% disabled. Obviously, some of those families are ticking more than one box because you'll notice pretty quickly that adds up to more than 100%. I titled this slide, What We've Learned, but I probably should have titled it, What I've Learned. So when I came to Habitat 5 years ago as the executive director, I tasked myself with becoming better informed about issues that affect housing, the history of housing in this country and in the world. And some of the things that I've learned is, one, I learned what redlining is. It was a term that I'd heard a lot, didn't actually know what it was. And it turns out that way back in the days when land use policy was first being formulated in the United States, the main person, and I apologize because his name just jumped right out of my head in the middle of this presentation, but the main person who was responsible for developing the core concepts of land use planning was also a famous and internationally famous gardener. And in some parts of gardening, it's very important that you correlate the plant to the soil type that's at that very spot, how much sun that very spot is giving. So differentiating your plantings around your property is a core concept of gardening, right? And so that carried over in his approach to land use planning. And I don't think anybody in this room wants to live next door to a factory or an industrial center. So in some regards, that makes perfect sense. But redlining carried a lot of unintended consequences. So as they started defining, this is a professional neighborhood, this is a working class neighborhood, this is a poor neighborhood, this is a ghetto, right? They started defining the parts of the community, and then it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And people found it difficult to access resources to improve their community or to move from their community to another community. And there's tons of books and movies and there's all kinds of literature available on this, so I'm not going to go into it. But the point I'm making is that redlining, zoning, as well-intentioned and as sensible as it seems on many levels, came with a lot of unintended consequences. That's something I've learned. I've also read a number of books and studies, and I've come to realize that mixed use, mixed income neighborhoods are the most effective at creating upward economic mobility for all sectors. Rich people do better, middle class people do better, poor people do better. And if you want to swing by my office, I'll give you all the footnotes for that, but it is well documented. I'm not saying that out of my own head. Another thing that I learned is that walkable neighborhoods are strongly preferred. So in almost every study that's ever been done, what do you want to see in your neighborhood? Walkability was in the top 80% of things mentioned in every study. Another thing I've learned is the power of small solutions deployed at scale. So Habitat for Humanity is not the biggest home builder in any community, but altogether we are the largest home builder in the United States. We are the largest home builder in this country. And I like to compare all those things to gardening as well. So this is what zoning does for us. It's a formal garden with every area specified what it's for. The cottage garden, right, with everything in profusion, this is actually what most people prefer to live in, right? You like the richness and the diversity and just the energy and excitement of these mixed neighborhoods, right? And then the power of small solutions, again using a gardening metaphor, I like to think of the victory garden. And I sometimes say to people, if everybody in your neighborhood grew tomatoes, you would have way too many tomatoes. And if you've heard growing zucchini, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And nobody in your neighborhood would buy tomatoes, right? So it's the idea that you can take a small solution, but you can deploy it out at scale, and you can do a lot for your community. And this is not part of my habitat talk, but when we talk about, you know, people getting off of dependency of foreign oil and things like that, I personally think that some of these small solutions are going to be key. That's not part of my discussion, so I'll move on. The last thing, and I have this kind of small on the slide, but it is better to be empowered than to be disempowered. So the whole habitat model is built around the idea of a hand up. We actually require people to tell us what is it that you need and what's your plan for how you're going to get there, and then we come alongside them and we help them do that. When families are going through our partnership program, we encourage them to think about all the things that they need for their family to be successful. We have had families take English as a second language. We have had families go back and rewrite their resume or reach out to their network and get better jobs. We've had people go back and get GEDs. We've had people go back and finish college degrees and get their college degree. We've had people that have gotten involved in different organizations in their community or start volunteering at their children's schools. So all different kinds of things. And when people feel like they are involved in crafting their own solutions, there's so much more buy-in. There are so many charitable organizations, and I don't mean this as any kind of a criticism, but there are a lot of agencies that the more pathetic you are, the more help you get, right? But that is the opposite of the habitat model. So we say, you know, take the step that you can, and we're going to help you get across the finish line. And even when we go out and do repairs, and we might be building a wheelchair ramp for a family of, you know, a husband and a wife, and they're both in their 80s, and one just got home from the hospital, and there's not a lot that they can do. But we have them think about what they can do and then do that. And sometimes it's very simple. They let us use their garden hose to wash out our paintbrushes. They let us use their garbage can to dispose of our lunch bags and pieces that are left over, that kind of thing. Even if it's something small, if somebody feels like they've been empowered and they've been able to help make the success for themselves, it is so much better of a feeling, right? And so empowering, best word for it. Many hands make light work. We've worked over the years to really develop a number of partnerships and collaborations. There are way too many to put on this slide. I've tried to list a few of the most important. The City of Forest Grove is definitely one of our key partners. The Community Housing Fund, Oregon Housing and Community Services, Open Door, Community Action, Vienna Star, Metro Paint, the USDA Rural Development Office, the DEQ, our core volunteers who turn out 3 days a week to build homes. We work with a number of active military and veterans groups, both to complete the projects that we're doing and also to help us identify people that need our services and to help them. We have a PEO group that comes into the Restore and merchandises our Restore for us every year in December, something that both of us look forward to. This slide shows the Portland Youth Builders, who are, it's an alternate education program for at-risk youth in Portland, and they're helping us with some of our deconstruction and construction projects here in Forest Grove. So what's next? All of this is what's happening, what's coming. I think that you can look to this space over the next couple of years. I think you're going to see a lot more innovation in terms of the solutions that are coming down the pike, things that we're able to do. We're going to continue to expand our partnerships and collaborations. We're going to have some new programs coming out. You'll hear all about those as they come available. I think you will see continued dedication to our operations with excellence and a lot more fun. Many, many, many more opportunities to just have fun together. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I'm going to take questions here as soon as I can stop my screen sharing so I can see. Where's the mouse?
It's up at the very top.
Do you see it, Janet? I'm not spotting it.
What?
There it is. Stop sharing.
There you go.
This computer has a delay on it, so sometimes you have to hit things like 10 times. So. Okay, questions? Court.
Yeah, is anything being done right now to work on the problem of affordable housing for the houseless folks that are all over Washington County? Is Habitat part of that? And are you looking at expanding Habitat's experiment with 3D printed homes?
Okay, so it's a two-part question for those of you who are listening in. He asked what is Habitat's connection to homeless services and whether we're doing any experimenting with 3D houses. And I can tell you that some Habitat affiliates in the United States are starting to build with 3D printing. I'm not there yet. We're not there yet. It's not happening here yet. But one of these days, we'll see what happens. In terms of homeless services, Habitat for Humanity does homeless services is not part of our core mission. But I can tell you that we operate very closely with the Forest Grove Foundation and Open Door and Family Bridge and a number of other organizations. We share our resources, we share our knowledge. I provide them, if they need it, with office furniture from my Restore. And we host collection barrels for people who are unhoused, for clothing and supplies and that kind of thing. So we do try to share resources and help address it in ways that we can. Great question. Thank you, Cory. Other questions? Joe?
Virginia, do you do anything with rental housing? Or is it all ownership housing?
So Joe is asking if we do anything with rental housing or if it's all ownership, and the answer is it's all ownership. So, no, we don't do anything for rental housing. In fact, there is a place and a purpose for rental housing. There's nothing wrong with rental housing, but we advocate strongly for home ownership because only home ownership carries the impacts that we talked about on an earlier slide for child development, educational opportunities, household resiliency, wealth building, right? So we advocate very strongly for home ownership, and we try to help funders and lawmakers understand that rental housing is great, but it's not like the end solution. It shouldn't be our goal just to get everybody into affordable rentals. That's our philosophy. Thank you, Joe. That was a great question. Anyone else? Well, thank you. You've been a great audience.